Hi everyone, Dan Higgins here from AstroWorld, and thank you so much for all of the subscribers and likers and Facebookers and YouTubers and all that stuff out there. Thank you so much for your support. We definitely appreciate it over here at AstroWorld. It's definitely growing, the community's growing, and there's lots of great stuff coming forward from AstroWorld. So again, thank you so much. So that being said, we're going to be going to step 2 of Sequence Generator Pro and entering your equipment profiles. So don't forget to subscribe to AstroWorld TV so you get all of the updates and all the new videos and all the stuff that we're going to be putting out there. Make sure you get the notifications that you could see part 3, 4, and 5 as they come up. So that being said, let's go to my computer and get right into equipment profiles. Okay, so here we are at my computer, and we're going to just boot up Sequence Generator Pro. And give it a second, and here we go. And in order to get to the Equipment Manager profiles, you got to go into Tools and Equipment Manager Profile, Equipment Profile Manager. So you're going to see a bunch of templates here. Originally, if you haven't done anything with it already, you're going to see like Canon template, LRGB template, and a narrowband template. You can see a couple of ones. You could actually change these. So if you want to start, if you have a DSLR Canon, it's going to give you some kind of defaults that you can play with. And then if you want to change one because you don't like it, and you could change this to select a name from a profile, say Canon template 2, and then save that, and now you got the Canon template 2. So that's the first thing that you could do with this. So let's talk about the camera tab. And for this example, I'm going to be using my my equipment profile, and I have an S-Big camera. So the first thing we want to look at is camera. Okay, so if you downloaded your ASCOM drivers for your camera and your Windows drivers for your camera, you should see your camera listed here. If not, go back and download the proper drivers for your camera. In this case, I have an S-Big camera, and under settings, you're going to see different settings for each different type of camera. So whatever you're allowed to change, it's going to allow you to do that. So make sure you kind of go through this. Usually, I left this at the default, so I didn't see any reason to change anything. But you may have some options in your ZWO cameras and/or other cameras. So you may want to change that kind of stuff. Just take a look at it and see if there's anything. If not, don't worry about it, and don't worry about the settings. Then we're going to talk about the cooler. So the cooler and the warmer of your camera. Now, if you have a cooled camera, you're going to want to make sure that the temperature that you pick is attainable for your camera. So double check and make sure you find out how many degrees below ambient you can make, and also figure out, because this is in Celsius, if you're in Americas, or if you use the Fahrenheit scale, you're going to want to change from Celsius to Fahrenheit to find out what's what. So my camera can get down to -15, so I'm set at -15, and it'll warm up at 20 degrees Celsius in 10 minutes after. Now I have the cool down on Camera Connect and cool down on Sequence Start checked. The reason being is that I want it to start cooling down when the camera connects, as I kind of mess around with my sequence, and we'll go into that a little bit later. And I also want to make sure it's at the right temperature when the sequence starts. So those two are checked for that reason. Then you have the settings and specs area. You could leave angle alone for right now unless you have a rotator or a manual rotator. So you could leave that alone for right now. And also with the angle, when you do a plate solve, it's going to figure out the angle of your camera and replace that and update it as you go. So that's one of the cool things about this. So as far as, we'll get into scale first in a second. Readout noise and pixel array, these two things you should be getting from your manufacturer's website, and they're listed under the specifications for each individual camera. So they're different for every camera. So make sure that you get this, as well as the pixel size, which you're going to be needing to figure out your image scale, which is this box here. So the image scale, if you don't know how to calculate your image scale or you're lazy like I am, there is an image scale calculator at celestialwonders.com. Excuse me for a second. At celestialwonders.com, I'll show you how to get into it. So when you go to celestialwonders.com, you go to links, and then you hit calculate image scale and field of view. So you're going to need your pixel size, and I think mine's 5.4. 5.4. My focal length is 400 millimeters. My width, I think, was 3326 and 2504. Calculate that, and that's your image scale right there. That number is where you're going to be putting right there. I was a little bit off on somewhere, but this is the right image scale for my telescope. But you're going to put the image scale for your telescope because that becomes real important when we go into plate solving in the next part. For your ZWO camera users down there, you're going to have to change this, and you'll see when you go to ZWO camera, the gain will light up. And that goes for any CMOS camera. So you got binning and the gain, whatever gain, I think this goes up to like 600 or something. Yeah, 600. And because with gain, your read noise changes, you're going to want to put that here for 1x1, 2x2, 3x3, and 4x4. As far as download times and options are concerned, I have left that alone. I have not changed that at all. So that's it for the camera tab. We'll be right back with the filter tab. And here we are at the filters tab. And I'll take this headset off. Here we are at the filters tab. And you're going to see, again, make sure that you have the ASCOM drivers set for your filter wheel if you have one. If you don't have a filter wheel, you could skip to the focus tab. And I'll put the time code for the focus tab in the description below. So you're going to find your filter wheel here. I have this S-Big filter wheel. And then you're going to go into settings. You want to make sure that any settings here are correct. Your COM ports are correct. Which filter wheel you have based on which manufacturer you have. And then you're going to go into set filters. And this is where you place the names where you put your filters and what slots they're in. So filter, in this case, filter slot number 1, I have luminance, then red, then green, then blue. Then I have an S2, CLS CCD, an H alpha, and an O3. Now for each profile, you got to make sure that you check mark the box that you use for each one. Because these will be in every one, but all of these may not be checked depending on the profile you're on. Then you have autofocus exposed. Now usually for broadband, 3 to 10 seconds is usually sufficient. 3 seconds happens to do well on my camera. You're going to have to troubleshoot your camera and see what is the optimum autofocus exposure that you're needed for your chip and your telescope. For narrowband, you need a little bit more. Can go up to 30 seconds, but for my camera, I've gotten it down as low as 4 seconds for narrowband focus only. So that seems to work fine for my camera. You may need a little bit more based on your chip, your camera dealer, or your telescope rig. Focus with filter, leave it default because then it will focus with that filter. Why would you want to focus your H alpha with luminance? I don't know, but you can if you wanted to. Not sure why. And then you got a focus point. So if you know the steps of your focuser for each filter, you could input that here. So before it goes in its focus routine, it can be at a closer spot. And flats we'll talk about in another video. You could have a flat wizard that will tell you how many seconds you need to take your flats for each filter. So that is it for the filter setup, and we're going to move right along to the focuser setup. And the third tab we're going through is the focus tab. I keep on forgetting to take this off. Again, the third tab we're going through is the focus tab. So in this case, I have the Moonlight focuser, and I have a DRO focuser. That's a dual focuser. So I'm going to choose that, but your focuser will show up here if you have put in the ASCOM drivers. The settings will pop up. If you have an ASCOM driver, they'll pop up and it'll say what COM port It's not showing up here because I don't have it hooked up, but it'll show the COM port that you want. Just make sure the COM ports are right. And there are some other focuser properties that you may or may not have for your focuser. And make sure that you have them set. I've never had any reason to mess with these, but you could kind of tweak it as you want. You could change for focuser backlash if you have any, in or out. You could use an environmental device for temperature input if you have an environmental device. And then you got fine focus step size and coarse focus step size. And we'll talk about that when I move over to the, actually it's right over here, the focus control tab. These numbers here are the same numbers here. So you could change these to whatever you want. You could change these to 50 and 1,000 if you want, or 200 and 400. Whatever you want to do is fine. Just know that when you hit these fine and coarse buttons, if you're doing a manual focus, that's the numbers that they're going to go by. But you could also change them here on the fly. You could have a reverse direction. Not sure why you would want to, but you can. You could have a focus reminder set. Okay, you could focus reminder every frame, every 1 degree. I just have a focus reminder before first frame, not on resume. And a focus reminder on the filter change. I have it done every filter anyway, so I don't need a focus reminder for that. Use autofocus. I have that checkboxed, and I have some settings in here. I have this set up at half flux radius, but you could set up at full width half max, but it does require pinpoint. So if you have pinpoint, you can use the FWHM. If not, you're at half flux radius. I have autofocus for every 1 degree change in Celsius. I also have autofocus on every filter change and before the sequence start, not on resume. So if it's on the same filter, I don't know why you want it, unless the temperature change is humongous, but then it'll get caught up here. Exposure time for filters or one-shot color. I have it set at binning 2x2, just to make it a little bit faster as far as what you can see as far as the stars are concerned. And all the rest, I believe, are defaults. I just, for an autofocus, I filter with the luminance. And I don't apply any dark subtraction, or I save the packages. I don't do any of that. You can. The ability is there for you. But again, I haven't seen any reason to do that. So I just do it again on filter change and temperature and 2x2. And auto adjust focus per filter, so they're going to change it every filter. And I didn't do a temperature compensation. I didn't do that. Frame and focus. This is where if you're doing a manual frame and focus, you could change this to any binning you want, and your exposure time would be whatever you want it to be. You could do a manual frame and focus in the beginning of your night in order to get kind of close to the focus point that you would think you're at. But again, the automated focus routine in Sequence Generator Pro is usually spot on. So that's it for the focus tab, and now we're going to move over to a slightly misnomered tab, the telescope tab. Okay, and the last tab that we're going to be going through in this part of the videos is the telescope tab. Now, it really isn't a telescope tab. This is your mount. This is your your mount. So in this case, I use EQ Mod for my telescope, and that is a program that's only available with Cinta mounts, which is Orion, Atlas, Sirius, or Skywatcher, I believe, is also a Cinta mount. But Skywatcher also has come out with its own driver that you could use. And again, whatever driver that you got from your ASCOM, whatever you download, all the telescopes you have will be in here. So you're going to go into settings, and for EQ Mod, if you want to learn more about EQ Mod, I will be happy to kind of go through some of the setups that I use in a future video. But this is going under the assumption that if you do have EQ Mod, you've already been using it, and you're all set up and you understand a little bit about it. So I park the telescope when the sequence completes, because when I'm sleeping, if I'm sleeping, and I'm letting the telescope run all night, I want it to park itself when it's done. I also have set up an auto Meridian flip, and that will actually give you some options. So minutes past the Meridian flip, I have set at 1 minute. I also have the auto center after Meridian flip checked. So that's a good thing when you're doing a Meridian flip. The Sequence Generator Pro takes a picture where you are, then it flips, it stops guiding, takes another picture, finds out where you're at, and then auto plate solves to the picture that I took the first time. So it's a really cool option for the Meridian flip. And as long as you're comfortable with the telescope moving on its own without having any cable snags or anything, just be very aware of what time your Meridian flip is going to be happening, and make sure that your cables are free to move with the mount, so you don't have any broken couplers or wires, or God forbid your telescope mount gets snagged. And my doggy is snapping away over there. And there's Pepper. Hi, Pepper. Where are you, Pep? You want to say hi? Oh, hi, boy. Hi, boy. Hi, boy. And there's Pepper. Hey, oh, hi. How you doing? All right. All right, so we're going to move on. And sync behavior, we're going to have sync. I have the mount settling time at 2 seconds. And what? And the scope focal length, I have my focal length at 400, and the aperture is not needed. The telescope nudge, I have left at a default of 1 degree, and I have nothing else. Okay, and I have nothing else checked. I left everything at default. So, bye, Pepper. And that is the last tab that we're going to be going through right now. Let's go to part 3 to go talk about plate solving, auto guiding, and the other tab. They do take a little bit longer to go through, and I didn't want to make this video 45 minutes. So that being said, that's the last one. So we will see you on video 3 and talk about plate solving, auto guiding, and the other tab. Okay, and that does it for Sequence Generator Pro Part 2. And that is the first part of equipment profile. So we went over the first 4 tabs. We'll go over the last 3 tabs in part 3. It takes a little bit more in-depth conversation to get the plate solving, the auto guiding, and some stuff on the other tab, not so much. But make sure you go over to YouTube and get the notifications and subscribe so you can get part 3 and get the notification when it comes up. So thank you again for watching. And again, my name is Dan from AstroWorld. Remember, keep imaging, keep educating, and keep having fun. And we'll see you in part 3 of Equipment Profiles. Thank you for watching.